this is hopefully going to be very interactive. I'm hoping. I got some very good, knowledgeable resolution people on. We have some state presidents on. Our national president's on, but driving between somewhere and somewhere. The reason for this came up is simple. We know that there is a National Grange Session Study Committee, and they've done a lot of hard work. I've talked to a lot of people and just finding different things out about national session. Why do people come to national session? What goes on at national session? And it's had me thinking the whole time since Loretta and I were interviewed by this esteemed group. And the questions they asked had me thinking, why? And I use that term specifically because it's a great group of Grangers that have a vast knowledge and time in the Grange. And it got me thinking, why do you go? And then really got to thinking about, well, most people don't realize the main purpose for national session is to set our policy for the upcoming year. So our National Grange Legislative Director knows what direction he can talk about, because if we don't have policy on it, he can't make it up and say, well, this is what I think. He's got to go by the policy set by the National Grange delegate body each year, whether they change it or not. So for those that don't know, there is a National Grange policy book. Now, I have not read it page to page. I'll admit that fact. But it's out there. So if you're wondering if National Grange has a policy on any subject in the world, and it does have a large scope to it, well, look through it and see, I got an itch I want scratched. And if National Grange doesn't have a policy on it, I'm going to write a resolution in my local Grange. And let's see where it flies. And you have to remember, most National Grange policy, most National Grange changes to the digest start at a local Grange. Most, not all, but most start at local Granges. We truly are a bottom-up organization. And that also, thanks, Phil. That also is at your state level. Now, I know there's some state presidents right now doing, oh, dear God, don't go down that road. But what you can do, you can affect your state Grange policy. Your digest, how many people even know their state Grange has a digest and bylaws and have seen it in the past 30 years? How about your local Grange policy and bylaws? Your local Grange. Phil, you weren't quite sure on that one.
I've seen the bylaws.
Yeah, but what year are they?
Recent, we just updated them.
Okay. But the point I'm trying to make is, folks, everybody on these screens affect the policies and the direction the Grange takes. And the discussion was, we need to make sure the members realize that and empower them to do that. And it's not a hard process. And, Chris and I were talking at the last Zoom meeting last week. We kind of like this stuff. I know Mark likes this stuff. Resolutions, discussing resolutions, arguing on resolutions.
Yeah.
And now Mark, that's Mark Noah, not Mark Gibbons. Mark Gibbons, you're a little too new at this. You'll get to it. You'll get that scar eventually.
Yeah.
But to me, the resolution process truly shows what a Granger is. Because, I have seen some ugly fights on the delegate floor. And in the end, people stand up, shake hands, go have a cup of coffee and a piece of pie and move on. Because they forget about it. You made your point, you made your argument, you might win, you might not win, but your Grangers and your friends at the end, and I truly believe other organizations don't operate that way exactly. But we do, and we see it, and we teach it. And if there's one thing that I think our youth members need to really see that action take place, and the outside world see that take place. I know Phil just put out the John Trimble, I don't know the exact title, Youth Leadership.
John Trimble Legislative Youth Experience.
There we go. If you know someone in your state that you think should be nominated for that, It is one of the greatest opportunities for a youth member or youth members. Because Heidi, did you do it, Heidi? And the experience they get, they sit in on the committees. They can actually debate on the delegate floor. They can't vote, but they can debate with a delegate body on an issue. No, Mark, they're not supposed to vote.
What?
They're not supposed to vote. Now, we've seen it happen a couple times, but you know. But Heidi, I mean, your experience with that, with the resolution process as a youth member, had to be, I think, exciting personally.
It's definitely one of a lifetime experience, even though I was going through like a life crisis at the same time. So, because my mother was going into hospice the day that I left to go to nationals that year. But it was a great, it was a nice distraction, and I learned a great lot. And actually, funny thing is that I was on the agriculture committee, something I would never have thought about being on. And now I'm quite interested in resolution policy within in agriculture. Now I find myself writing a lot more resolutions in that category.
Excellent. Excellent. So it's opportunities, folks, like that we don't think about how we can affect Grangers. Now, and don't feel afraid. If you want to jump in and say something, folks, this is open forum. If you have an opinion, a belief, that's what we're here for, is to show, and we hope you'll take this back to your membership and say, hey guys, we want debate. You know, we want open debate at our Grange meetings, because that's how we do what we do.
Hey, Pete, if I could step in.
Yes.
I think to me, the process also teaches patience, because, you know, sometimes folks come in and they have an idea and they write a resolution, and the resolution loses and they get irritated, and then they get upset, and then they leave. You know, wow, I can't change anybody's opinion. It teaches you patience, because we've had people that presented the same or a similar resolution at multiple sessions, and maybe they fine-tuned it a little bit, or maybe they just took that opportunity to argue each time and maybe win over a few more people, and eventually maybe they did convince people of their point, or maybe they learned a little bit about why people oppose their point.
That's a great point, Mark. Yeah, I think if someone writes a resolution and it doesn't pass, the first thing they need to go back is say, hey, why? Why didn't this pass? What didn't I cover? What should I have covered? What direction can I go? Use it as a learning experience.
Right.
Because we've all seen that some resolutions come in year after year and they change, they tweak them. Yes, Chris.
You know that. How'd you know I was ready to go?
Hey.
Add to Mark's comment, it's not just patience to pass your resolution, but it's patience to achieve what the resolution is wanting to get done as well, right? So here in the Pacific Northwest, those of us that grew up in Grange grew up knowing that thanks to the Grange, we have public power. We took the power out of the hands of the big, bad private power companies, right? Well, from the time that resolution passed on the floor of the State Grange Convention to when the public power, as we know it today, was adopted in the legislature, it was 6 years. I mean, it was fist fights almost. It was the office getting broken into and the signature sheets being stolen time after time. I mean, it was politics as we've read about politics in the 1920s, right? So it's that piece as well. It's that just when you get the resolution written and passed, don't stop. There's still that action to happen to make your idea into reality.
Well, would you say, Chris, that let's say your resolution, let's go with the power resolution, and it passes. Well, if you're the writer of that, you should be prepared if someone calls on you to say, okay, it's now passed. I need you to talk to this individual. I need you to keep going with this and running with this and talk in front of this committee and that committee, which that's true too, Chris.
Absolutely. I mean, there's usually when you write a resolution, you have that passion, right? You have that sense of interest in getting whatever it is to happen. And so you've got to harness that passion of those folks that wrote that resolution to help the Grange at whatever level take it to that next step, make it reality, make, you know, those things in the history books on rural free delivery and school lunches and all those other things that we like to list didn't just happen with a snap of your fingers, right? I mean, there was a lot of folks and a lot of effort and a lot of conversations that took place all over. And that's the cool thing about Grange. I mean, that's what Grange separates us from all the other community organizations, is that ability to do more as a group, right? To be we're stronger together than we are as individuals.
Exactly. And just by participating in our process, you learn more about the process as a whole. You know, you realize that, you know, hey, I can actually, as an individual, I can submit written testimony online to a committee hearing on a bill. You know, I'll bet a lot of people don't realize they can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and Burton was trying to be on. I know he's got some issues. He's got to get his daughter to college and all that. Maybe Loretta can help speak on this. But we all need to realize that the Grange in the past few years, our identity in DC has changed. And there's a lot of different subcommittees, senators, Congress people coming to the Grange and asking our opinion. And I know when Burton or Betsy show up at a luncheon, at a dinner, people specifically come to speak to them. Can you speak on that, Loretta?
Yeah, when I arrived here in Washington over 20 years ago, I knew about the Grange and a little bit about Leroy, because the company I used to work for, we would invite the Grange to come to the different ag lunches. But since I've been with the Grange for the last 7 years, now when I go to lunches or go to events with Burton or with Betsy, as soon as they walk in the room, people know Grange is in the building, and their minds start thinking of, we need their help in getting the message out to rural America. And we are the voice, believe it or not, we are the voice of rural America on various issues, things that we haven't even thought about. People are coming to us, and that is speaking volumes. I mean, the power that Grange is now becoming in Washington is something I have never seen. And it's really, really putting Grange in the forefront on a lot of issues. And Burton stays within policy. He don't stray outside of that policy. He walks that policy line. So I mean, he really knows that policy. It's like your Bible. And one thing I will say about the Grange, yes, you all will have great discussion. And I wish the members of Congress could see what you all do. Because at the end of the day, you all can sit down and break bread, have other discussion, and be friends. We can't have that here in Washington because our members can't let go of stuff and learn to break bread. Oh, 20 years ago, they could do that, but they don't seem to do that now. And I wish members of Congress and other folks could see what you all do at y'all national session with your resolutions. And I know I look forward to the different resolutions each year that comes from the various states and the individuals. And I always wonder, why did that resolution make it? What is behind that resolution? And as I get to learn more about that resolution, I have a better understanding. But you all should be very, very proud of what you all accomplish at your state session, your national sessions, so that policy can be made, and be very proud of your legislative department, because he walks that line when it comes to policy. If it's not there, he won't touch it.
Thanks, Loretta.
Hey, Pete, this is Mark Gibbons. I'd like to say something.
Absolutely.
So, being a lobbyist, and working with Burton and Betsy, the buzzword in DC right now is just rule. So they're looking for ways to how legislation is going to affect the rural areas, whether it's broadband, whether it's healthcare, whether it's agriculture, whether it's food programs. I mean, the Farm Bill is 80% food programs and only 20% agriculture. But they seek the Grange's advice. They seek out Burton and Betsy because they know that it affects so many people. And the Grange has a reputation of being that rural voice. That they are the footprint, and that's a good resource for the people up here. So when we create resolutions and send them to the National Convention and they go to the subcommittees, we have to remember when we do that what we send up there, it needs to be broad enough nationally that Burton and Betsy can go up there and actually defend it and speak about it. If it's strictly a state issue, we can have it, but it's not going to be something Burton is going to be talking about on DC, because it may be only for that state of Washington, or maybe only the state of Texas or wherever. But remember, when we send things up there, send it with the idea that it is for the betterment of everyone. And the rural areas that we have, and like I said, the Grange is known for this rural membership. And that's why so many people, like Loretta said, are coming more and more to the Grange to represent them, especially in the healthcare arena, mental health, all those type of areas. So thank you.
Thanks, Mark. So we'll segue right into, Phil, if you want to share, whichever one you want to share first. I didn't mark them on my page, so however you want to draw them up. We got both individuals here, so we're good. So what's one we got? Perfect. This one will have John Benedict, State President of New Jersey, discuss this resolution. The two resolutions we're going to show on the screen tonight both came out of New Jersey, and I did that because I know the people who wrote them, and I can discuss with them, and I also know the reasons behind them, so it kind of made it easier for me tonight. But and don't worry about the numbering system. Each state has their own system. Then when it gets to National Grange, they'll change the system. So this resolution came out of New Jersey, and we'll have John speak on it. But we need to remember that a resolution either gets passed, doesn't get passed, or it goes into a policy statement. Now, there's other ways it can go, but those are the big three. Now, this resolution went into policy statement. It went to the Grange Growth and Development Committee. Committee thought it had merit, but they didn't think it needed to be passed as a policy, so they put it in their policy statement. So John, if you can give us, and also Donna Waters,
Okay.
both Donna's out of Vincenttown, John's the state president of New Jersey. If you can give us a little history on this, please.
I'll defer to Donna.
Oh, gee, thanks, John. Now how this came about is Vincenttown Grange sold their building recently, within the past 2 years. And one of our members had thought about it. When you sell a building, you're actually selling a piece of your identity in the community. And there needed to be some kind of grieving process with it, because it's like saying goodbye to an old friend. And that's how the person had the idea to come about and say, we need to do something. We need to get something at the, at least at the national level, to say, hey, look, something needs to be out there. And that's how the idea was born. It was a very simple idea where, you know, it started at our local level and went all the way and made it into the policy statement for national last year. And before we segue into the other one that was out there, it was the first time that I can ever remember that Vincenttown actually sent 2 resolutions to our state session after 2 ideas. And from that simple 2 ideas, made it all the way through our state, our state resolution committees, and went all the way to national and became part of the policy statement at national. So first timers for this and made it all the way. So it's, one little idea can be out there.
So from my standpoint, we talked about this at one of Vincenttown's meetings when they were in the process, I think somewhere between the time that they had signed the contract for selling the building and when it actually happened.
Mhm.
And it was a lesson for me because in my time as state master, we've only sold, at that point, we had only sold 2 halls. The other hall was not in good condition, so it was a blessing to be rid of it. Vincenttown had some issues with the building, but they still wanted to be a Grange. And the lesson to me was to help them and kind of not just say, okay, you've sold your hall, here's your money, or here's the income from your money. Let's move on. Let's help them get the resources. And some of this is not something that I'm necessarily equipped for. So we felt that there was really a need on the national level because if a Grange in New Jersey is suffering with this as an identity crisis, if you will, you can bet there's Granges in Oregon or Maine or North Carolina that might be faced with the same thing. And hopefully we can all work together to create a program to help them.
And I think that was part of the thought process, right, for both of you, is how do we transition, and as you said, Donna, how do we maintain our identity as Vincenttown Grange when we don't have the hall anymore? And what steps do we need to take? Do we need to look at other avenues of community service? Do we need to work of community outreach? How do we keep our name out there? I believe you folks have kind of picked up your game at the Burlington County Fair a little bit. Those types of things, and I guess, as John said, I'd never thought about this. Here's your money, have fun. Well, that sounds good, but how do we help them along on a state level? And anybody thoughts on that, folks? Comments? This group concerns me when they're quiet.
If they sold their hall, what do they operate out of?
We actually, when we sold our hall, we had it, the gentleman that purchased the hall actually kept the building, and he repurposed it still as like a community center. Part of our sale was we actually put in where we get to use the building at least 16 times a year if we choose so, on a monthly basis, so we can still meet in that building. And we've met on Zoom. We've met and we continue to meet on Zoom and have a hybrid meeting actually, as well as our president has offered to let us go out to his house. So we go out there as well. We're a very small group of people. We're still trying to figure out our identity and be more visible out in the community. Like Pete said, we were involved with our county fair. For Memorial Day, the township has a Memorial Day parade, and we've partnered with 4-H, with our local county 4-H groups, and had a float in that parade this past year. So we continue to get out there. The main thing is after we sold the building, there were a lot of people that actually thought that Grange no longer existed. And we're still fighting that. Like, oh, you still exist. Yeah, we do. And we've worked really hard. In school, we used to do a school scholarship for school, and when I inquired about it, they're like, "Well, we were told that you had disbanded." No, we didn't. We just sold the building, so we're still fighting that.
So where are your stations and your regalia and things stored, or do you no longer use them?
We no longer use them, and right now they're out at well, everything is out at our president's house. He has some storage buildings on his property, so they're there. They haven't, or if somebody needs them, we've loaned them out to another Grange to use them for a thing that they wanted to. They had an open house and they wanted to have their regalia, there set up. We loaned them to that because they're in very good shape. So we still have all of that. We still have the rug. We still have flag, all of that. If we needed to cart that in and set up, like have a traditional meeting, we can still do that.
So you don't really have traditional meetings anymore?
No, no.
Would the guy that you sold to, would he allow you to put a sign up on the building that says home of, whatever the Grange is?
Well, when he has that out front and stuff like that, when people are referred to it, it is referred to the former home of Vincenttown Grange, formerly known as Vincenttown Grange. So it's still out there, and people can still use the building like it was intended to be. He's just now the one that has to fight with state fire marshal and all that kind of stuff.
Right. But if he says former home, that indicates that you're gone, completely
Yeah.
gone. I mean, maybe he could
Yeah.
still say home of, whatever the building is, his name or whatever, home of Elizabethtown Grange, so that you still have that identity out there that you're still
Mhm.
around. You're just maybe not
Yeah,
meeting
yeah.
there, or maybe you would have a meeting date and time and a phone number to call, or something like that, so that people could still recognize that physicality and know that you're not former, just
Right.
you've just sold the building.
It's a good point, Susan.
It's interesting because I think we're going to start seeing more and more and more issues with Grange Hall maintenance and how that works. I mean, you don't have to talk to very many Grange members that belong to a Grange that has a hall before you're into a discussion about a property line fight or a bad well or a septic system that's been deemed to be not efficient and you've got to put up $35,000 to connect to the city sewer, or name your list of things, right? I mean,
Mhm.
our hall was built in 1913 and it needs $40,000 worth of siding that we've been trying to raise money on for a couple of years. Well, when you have new members walk through your door, are they walking in and signing up to take on legal battles and that sort of fundraising effort? No, that is not what the focus is. That's not how you're going to keep folks. And so, I mean, I think this issue is one that we got to figure out a plan on how that's going to work. How are we going to, I'm looking at Kirk down there in Clark County in our state right now, and in talking to some of the Granges down there with property tax values, and you can't afford it anymore. And so is it going to be a situation where you find one good centrally located hall and then everybody, you've got 4 Granges that work out of it, and I've got the first week, you've got the second week, somebody else has the third week, however, and we share it. But the responsibility and the resources for 20, 40, 60 member Granges anymore, it's hard, and it's hard to go get new members when they're looking at that sort of topic on the to-do list. And I see Kirk's got his hand up.
Yes, I do. Thank you for that, Chris. Yeah, I'm down in Southwest Washington. We've lost 4 Grange halls in the last roughly 5, maybe 6 years, which is sad to see. They're gone, pretty much forever. But part of the challenge is, as you mentioned, the Grange's buildings, a lot of them are old and needing of ADA stuff and, roofs and all those things. And yet, a lot of times it seems like when these Granges sell, the money goes back to the state, where if that money could be allocated to rehabilitating some of the other Granges in the area, then we could strengthen those and, like you say, maybe share membership or resources that way or whatever. But there's got to be some way to help our Granges. We got another one that's in danger. They need $70,000 roof or something. I think it's they got a bid for, and they're going to have to sell if we can't figure out a way to help them do that. One of the things that I created, and you won't be able to see it there, is a Grange, Clark County Subordinate Grange Health Survey. It's just double-sided, and it's got questions on there for each of the Granges to answer questions about their strength, their financial strength, their membership strength, their activities, all those kinds of things, so that we can then hopefully, as a Pomona, look at all of those and kind of see where each of the individual Granges are before they just up and sell because they're too far gone and all. So we're going to have in our September meeting, hopefully we'll have these forms back from all of the Granges to see how bad the rest of the Granges are in our area, so that we can maybe prevent further ones from going. So yeah, it's a big concern.
And
When
Burley,
we had a deputy program, the deputies, and I was one, we would go to our different Granges and we would ask those same questions. We would fill out a form and turn it into the state Grange. So they did have that information they should have had the information for all the Granges in the state.
Sure. And I think they did. I think I've heard of that. I mean, I've turned in our information to the state, but that hasn't had an impact in our local area. And when I brought this up at Pomona a couple of months ago, I got a few pushbacks. Why should we have to say how much money we have and all? And so there's this kind of fear of sharing information, which I understand, but dang it, if we can't rally around and help people that need it, we got to know where their challenges are. So anyway.
So what I'm hearing is, and I can't see everybody, I can see one person now, but what I'm hearing is a lot of great ideas, Kirk, to research what your state Grange policy is, National Grange policy is on funds, and then resolution to your state session. Hey, I think that, or my Grange thinks that certain percentage could be used to help other Granges. But you got to check out what your policies are, what your digest is in your state.
Sure.
And go with it that direction. Yeah. I mean, that's what tonight's about. How can I in Southwest, Southeast Washington affect the state Grange of Washington? Well, that's how.
Yeah. Good.
And I think the other point we're seeing is, and Chris, I think you brought it up. It's amazing to me how in Vincenttown, their Grange Hall has a better identity than the Grange does. Meaning, well, I'm having an event. What's the old Vincenttown Grange Hall? Yeah. To this day, and 19 Grange, New Jersey hasn't been around for 25, 30 years. But if there's an event, it's the old 19 Grange Hall. Yeah, so it's interesting how Grange Halls still have a better identity than the organization themselves.
Part of the problem, this is Leah. Part of the problem I know in our Grange is that we are just the hall. They don't know what we are.
Yeah.
We don't have an identity even with the building. We're just the place that rents. They always ask us who owns it. So
where are you, Leah?
We're in Columbus, New Jersey. So we're close.
Columbus, okay. I can't see who you were. Okay, I got you. So question, folks, and we're just discussing all kinds of stuff. So how many local Granges? So 5 Mile Prairie Grange, Columbus Grange, any Grange saw something in their township that someone did that's pretty darn amazing. whether it's somebody helping somebody, the local fire department. I talked to someone at Elmer Grange the other night. They had an amazing confined space rescue that the fire company was involved in. So I asked, well, Jack, has Elmer Grange ever passed a resolution saying, hey, Upper Pittsgrove Township Committee, we want to commend their town fire company for the great job they did, and we want to draw your attention to what they did. Our organization says thank you to them. So all you're doing is taking a local resolution in your local town and sending it to your township committee, say, we want to thank a local organization or local person for something outstanding they did. Nothing says you can't do that. And you want to get your identity in the township, start doing that kind of stuff. I see Chris's
So
head
then-
going up and down.
Another question is, I know you guys really like that library, the book, or not the library, the dictionary, words for thirds.
Yes.
Our issue is our schools don't want them. The kids use computers. Do you have somewhere where another Grange needs them and we can send them on behalf of another Grange? Because we're willing to do that, but we don't know where to go for that type of stuff.
Shoot me up. I see Debbie's got her hand up.
But like, I know we did a couple years ago, we did one up in New York where my mom lives, but they only have 10 kids in their 3rd grade class. So we sent them a case. They're good for a couple of years. So that's where we run into sometimes the issues of what do we do with it? Our kids are spoiled. They have computers. They're not using notebooks. They're not doing that stuff.
So Debbie first, then you, Chris. Debbie.
Actually, on the Words for Thirds website, the dictionary website, you can just sponsor a gift of dictionaries, and it will go in your name to a school. So you can do that right on the website.
I'll have to ask.
And Grange gets quite a bit of publicity on that website for what they do with Words for Thirds.
Okay.
Chris?
The other thing that we learned with our local school district, and because we were asking the same thing, is do they really need and want dictionaries anymore? And the answer was absolutely yes. The kids can use the dictionaries, at least in Washington State, as part of the state testing, whereas they can't use computerized devices, but they can use a paper dictionary. And that's what there's a lot of lessons in just learning how to read and how to find things in that dictionary that the teachers in our school district anyway are still very, very grateful for the dictionaries, and they're putting them to use in that testing scenario as well.
Thanks, Chris. Jean, to answer your question, Betsy is on. She is driving her car, so she really can't be on. And Burton, like I said, is in the process of getting things done to get his daughter back to college this week. He was going to try to be on, but also know they had some really bad storms where he lives, so I'm not sure if they had power issues or not.
I'm home now, Pete.
Oh, you're home now?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Betsy's home now.
I think my question is, people have been referring to them, people that's saying that other entities come to them and ask questions. What do they do?
Meaning?
I don't know them. I don't know what they do.
Oh, well, Betsy's our national president.
National, okay.
I'm
in
sorry.
Columbus,
Betsy's
we're trying to focus more on community aspects. So we're doing like a free clothing swap, and we did a plant swap earlier in the year. That seems to bring out more people and try and get more people involved. It's harder now. Like we've been looking at our books, and when we had really big membership, not both household parents were working, and it's just hard to get people to come out and join to give that time to do things.
Yes, everybody's facing that problem, for sure. So Jean, so I'm sorry, I should have done better than that. I apologize. And Burton's our national legislative director, Burton Eller. So I should have done a better job with that. So hopefully you see where I'm going with this, to get recognition using the resolution process, have one for your local Grange. What's it cost? 34 cents to mail it with a stamp or email it to the township committee? And
I think it's 66 now.
Yeah,
so
it's
that
gone
would
up.
Jimmy, I've mailed letters so long. I just buy forever stamps. I buy a bunch of them, so they last me a long time. Kind of like writing a check. I got one somewheres. But folks, that's what we're trying to get tonight is the resolution process in the Grange is not just state and national, just your local Grange can have an effect in your townships or cities or boroughs or whatever we have. And I think that's the point we're trying to get across. And then if you want to throw the other resolution up, Phil, wherever Phil went.
There.
Oh, there's Phil. I lost his smiling face. So the next resolution is that Donna wrote is about behavioral mental health awareness, ending the stigma. And it was, we'll say for a lot of reasons, Donna works in the healthcare field. She has personal knowledge of mental health issues in her work life. And she realized the importance of National Grange getting involved with Rural Minds to help end the stigma of mental health, suicide prevention in rural communities. Now, Donna, if you want to expand on that a little bit.
Right. And this idea had been kicked around in my head for a long time. And it was actually came more out of not me personally, but knowing of a situation where it was difficult for somebody to get help and like not going to every place that this person could go to get another person help, and barriers being coming up. It takes a celebrity out there that says, I suffer from depression, and gets out there before everybody jumps on a bandwagon and say, oh, this is a good idea. And this is well before I even know that National Grange partnered with Rural Minds. It was about the time that last year when they started talking with Rural Minds, and then all of a sudden this just like slid right in there, and it just came out about. And like Pete said, I work in healthcare, and some part of my job is reading some of the charts, and like if these people had the resources out there and that taboo of being able to talk about it, and that's ending the stigma, and that's now you can see that there's more of a national focus on it, but I think this is a start.
Thank you, Donna. Now, this is the resolution that was sent in from New Jersey. And here's the resolution after the National Grange, I think Education and Health Committee and the National Grange delegate body tweaked it a little bit. And it changed took a couple lines out, put a couple lines in, but it didn't change the intent. I mean, I think as we talked earlier, Mark, we all need to realize we send a resolution in, and as we like to say, when the delegates get on a little bit, they're going to gnaw some off and put some back on, and you've got to be amenable to that. You can't take it personal when they want to change something. But
Pete, you're actually right. I was on that committee when this resolution came, and we changed it. We loved the premise of it. We knew it was important to have, but we also knew that we needed to change some wording to make it something that Burton and Betsy could get their teeth into and represent this resolution on the Hill when we're approached about mental health. So that's why we had recommended some changes to give Burton and Betsy a little bit more latitude and some more power when they go in and talk about these issues.
And I was going to highlight the changes from 1 to 2, but yeah, that wasn't going to happen. But I'll say the changes that were made were all for the positive, I believe. I think it really cleaned it up. So, it shows how, again, small Grange in central New Jersey, I don't know how many people live in Vincenttown, but it's not a lot. can affect National Grange policy. And how many people on here have actually written resolutions that got passed at the state level and put in national policy? Kirk has.
I don't know about
Not national.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I.
So we see it can happen. It does happen. And I think it also empowers, and anyone wants to speak on this who have had a resolution adopted at national session, how it kind of empowers you a little bit. Yeah, look at that. I did that. John, I know you and I have talked about that. The first time you had a resolution you wrote and got passed at national session, how it made you feel. He likes it when I call on him, just so we understand this.
He's multitasking. Yes, it is a great feeling when you're sitting there, whether you're a delegate or just as a spectator, and your resolution comes up on the floor and you watch the debate and then you watch it go through and be adopted. It's very gratifying.
Pete?
Yes.
We typically, when in Oregon, when we've got resolutions coming to committees, we typically will counsel them to not spend a lot of time trying to edit the whereases, because the whereases aren't really what's going to be printed in the policy statement. But it does seem like for a resolution that we're going to send on to national, it might make sense to look closely at those, because that might influence the way National Grange delegates view the resolution. So, and I hadn't really thought about that a lot in the past, but that's something that I would probably mention to people going forward is, if you want this to be considered by the national delegates, maybe see if you do like all those arguments, and maybe do edit the whereas arguments a bit.
I always liked the whereases, Mark, because it helped educate me on a subject I wasn't aware of.
Right.
James Maley.
Yeah. The one thing.
Hold on, James. James has something he wants to say here up in the top corner.
Yeah, I've had resolutions written before. One was on neuropeptides and bees and stuff, and dealing with the whereas process and making sure people know what the topic is about. That helps forward the resolution on. Because if you don't know what you're talking about, like I didn't know at all really what the bee aspect and all the background stuff. But once you get to know the background stuff, then you can actually be like, okay, I learned something.
Yeah, well, I think your point is well made, that it makes you research it and learn more on the subject, so you can educate not yourself, but also other people. I mean, that's another good reason for resolution. You're educating other people on a subject that,
right.
Trust me, when you start talking about neonectoids and all that kind of stuff, no. If I can't spell it, I probably, if I can't spell it well enough to look it up on Google, I got a problem. So that's why resolutions like that, I like more whereases, so it can educate me on what exactly it is.
But it is important that the whereas is actually, if they're opinion rather than fact. Well, be careful.
Yeah, they got to be fact.
Fact.
Yes, not your opinion. Deborah.
I just wanted to make a comment about how long did has the Grange been pushing broadband? I think it's been 10 years. I know we had broadband in resolutions in Vermont and recognized that it was affecting business here when a business couldn't be in a rural part of the state because they didn't have broadband. And how long did we push that? And then COVID happens, and suddenly the national is on the bandwagon, not National Grange, but the president of the United States is on the bandwagon that we need broadband. Yeah. Because all the kids had to go home, but we'd been saying it for years that it was needed.
I think either Phil or Betsy can fill us in on that one.
I'll let boss lady take that one.
Yeah, it's been more than 20 years, Debbie.
20?
We've been pushing for
Oh,
that.
it's been a long time. I knew that. And we're
Yeah.
still struggling. I mean, you know that
Yeah.
Vermont has been having a lot of flooding. Our
Mm.
internet went out. And I
Mm.
wasn't even in a flood area. But not having internet severely affects what you can get done. I
Yeah.
couldn't register people for the National Grange.
Right.
Well, I think that goes back to what Chris was saying earlier. You know, resolutions can pass. It can take 6,
Years
10,
for them
20
to-
years to get the process to where we like it. But you got to start the process somewhere and sometime. And I think, Petey's personal opinion, I'd rather be on the front door leading the way and come up with some of these new ideas and new thoughts and new ways of doing things than being in the back taking up, that's a great idea. And the Grange is doing that with certain things. We're leading the way. It's all through the resolution process of somebody, somewheres, like I say, has an itch they want scratched, and they write a resolution on it. We need something. And start the process, folks.
I also wanted to say the whereases are the explanation of why, but also we would love to have background materials.
Right.
State presidents out there, if the local Granges send or Pomonas send background material along, please send it along to us so that we know the explanation behind the resolution and can discuss it more intelligently.
I really liked when I was Trimble Youth a couple years ago, we got a resolution that actually had footnotes with it. And so in their whereases it said blah 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 footnote 1, and then you could look up the source that they got that from, and footnote 2, because it let us know that it was fact and not just kind of pulled out of nowhere. But it also gave me some reading material to educate myself further beyond just what the resolution said. So that's always something fun that I appreciate when I'm looking at a resolution.
Good point, Phil. I think we're seeing more research done on cell phones. It's at committee sessions, trying to educate ourselves. You know, I mean, that's what it's for. Lynette, you have something you'd like to say?
Yeah, I was going to mention, I would like very much for anybody who sends a resolution that resolved can stand all by itself and doesn't need the whereases. The whereases are important so that we all know what it's going on, but the resolved needs to stand by itself. And a lot of the ones that we get at state or that come to national, they need more cleaning up to get that resolved to stand by itself. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. And so I wanted to make sure that I spread the word with all of you.
I know in our state, in New York, that's actually one of the requirements before it even gets out of committee. It has to be able to go on the floor and stand by itself as the resolve.
Now, just so we understand that part, everybody understand what that means. It stands by itself. Like if you read that, therefore be it resolved, you understand what they want done, how they want it done, and what time frame they want it done in, basically. So that paragraph makes all the sense in the world, and it can survive by itself. Thanks, Kirk, for being on, buddy.
So, Pete?
Yes.
There was one thing I wanted to say about that too. And, you know, we've been talking a lot about the purpose of Pomona Granges. And I remember when I was younger, much younger, all of our resolutions from the state went through the Pomona Grange before they went on to the state Grange. It was pretty rare that a subordinate Grange sent a resolution directly to the state Grange. And now, at least in Oregon, most of them come directly from a subordinate Grange, which is fine. But the problem that I see is that when they went through another Grange, another level, or even just more people, it gave a chance for more sets of eyes to be on it and to start making those changes that were necessary to clean it up, to make it a stronger and a better resolution. And I feel like part of now what's going on is we get to our state sessions, You know, there is always a push at state and national to get things done as quickly as possible. And I fear that we lose some of that, and it's been lost already by not going through more eyesights on it, more eyeballs on that product, so that it can be cleaned up before it even gets there. But if not, certainly that it could be strengthened at the state or the national Grange before it is adopted. And it seems like nowadays there's more of a tendency to, you know, if it's not well written, if it's something that's too vague, or, you know, people don't want to put the time into it, it's just easy to say, no, we don't want to deal with it, you know, send it back again next year, which is unfortunate because it might be a great resolution that may be very timely for our policy, but our people need to put the work into it. And I really do believe that means sending it to other people to look at, to strengthen, to get more feedback, to make sure that you really do have the best arguments in there.
Thanks, Susan. I mean, that used to be the process, obviously.
Right.
I know, but it's interesting how different states do things different ways. I know our friends from Delaware are on, and Delaware has, Jimmy, don't you have a pre-state session resolution meeting where all the resolutions are dealt with prior to state session? Or some process like that?
No, he needs to unmute.
You're muted, Jimmy. Nope, still muted, Jimmy. But I think the point we're trying to make is, yes, Susan, perfect world, that's how it goes, but different states handle them differently anymore. As long as they get there, I agree. I think the more eyes helps build a stronger resolution.
Right. Well,
yes.
And maybe that means just sending it to other Granges in your state.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, but get more eyes on it so that you know that the arguments you have, that what you're trying to accomplish really is the best thing for the organization.
Yes. Bob.
Yeah, in Connecticut, we started that pre-session Zoom committees to pre-handle the resolutions and go through them and try and weed out what wasn't worth passing on and strengthen up what was worth passing on. And we also several years ago passed a resolution to encourage, as I recall, I don't think it required the resolutions to go through Pomona, but it encouraged them. But I mean, we have certain Grangers and certain Granges that put through some whopperdillies of resolutions, and you kind of know when a certain name shows up on certain resolutions, it's going to be an interesting discussion.
Yeah. Burton knows that well.
So Jimmy Corral, you're unmuted now. So
no, I was going to echo what Robert said, that we went to Zoom meetings ahead of time too, to meet by Zoom. We used to have a delegates meeting, we call it, and it was like it was about a week or 10 days before state session, and we worked on resolutions and policy and a lot of different things. But since in the last few years, some of our Granges are really getting weak, and we do more by Zoom. So we do the resolutions ahead of time with Zoom. Sometimes we only have a few resolutions to work on, and also we went to a 1-day session just because the way we're structured down here, and so we are doing Zoom meetings ahead. And we encourage our folks to do resolutions, but like I say, as things change in agriculture down here, and that's years ago we did a lot of resolutions in agriculture mainly, and some in health and some in education. But like I say, since we don't have as many, we don't have the delegates meeting anymore. But we do work on resolutions by Zoom. Same as National Grange, we work on resolutions too, at the national level through the agriculture committee, which
And-
works. It saves a lot of time at the session.
And you guys
Yeah.
are in a unique situation because you guys meet the first weekend in December or the first Saturday in December.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. And we also had the first resolutions at national session this year.
Exactly. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. We like to change it, but it's been that way forever. It's hard to change. It's just hard.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Betsy, anything you'd like to say?
I have to figure out how to unmute my phone here. Great discussion. Some good ideas, and we just want to encourage you. I know there's lots of things that you all would like to change in our government or even in the Grange. So don't hesitate, write them down. If you're not sure how to word a resolution, then get some help. Your state president or Pomona president, or there's surely somebody in your area, or call the national office. Burton or I would be glad to help you in wording a resolution, but we're really looking for some good policy discussions this year. And they come from you, the grassroots. So thank you.
And Carol, I think you've got a point I'd like to bring up is you're not a delegate. Well, but you can still be in the meeting and listen to the delegates debate resolutions. Yeah, you can still be in that process. It's fun. Like I said, I'm a geek when it comes to that kind of stuff. I'll admit it. I'll put my hand up the first say I love that stuff. It's fun. It's interesting to watch the process happen. So we're reaching our hour here.
Lisa has had her.
I'm only sticking to an hour.
Lisa's had
But
her up here for
we got other stuff to say. Anybody else have anything else you want to say? Then I'm going to let Sam discuss her youth and junior Zoom coming up on a week. Well, next Sunday, I think. But anybody else, anything else you'd like to discuss with resolutions? I mean, it's a great discussion. I don't want to cut you all off. Anybody knows me,
Lisa has her hand up.
I can't see Lisa. So Lisa, go ahead. Oh, there she is.
Hi. I just wanted to say real quick that I agree about needing to have the resolutions well formed and well written and, better presentable before it would go at least to national. So in Colorado State Grange, we have committees and we have people, various officers chair the committees for legislative or whatever category that the resolution would be. And then, so we bring those resolutions and we have time allotted during state session to discuss the resolutions in committee and fine tune them and, refine them and like, does this make sense? And just kind of hash it out and suss it out till it makes more sense and it can actually be presented to the state session attendees at large and have it in a better format to do that. And then we do allow everybody who attends can participate in the debate about them. It's just only the delegates can vote. So that's how we do it.
So you have your state officers chair the committees?
Yes, and they take turns, do different things,
Really?
do you want to chair the whatever committee this next year? That kind of thing.
I like that idea. Anybody else? Anything else they'd like to say?
Nancy, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Nancy Trimble Klein. I am the president of what I believe to be the newest Grange in Pennsylvania, in Indiana County. So I am completely new to all of this, but I'm excited to help lead the charge on bringing the Grange back to our county. With that being said, I just want to try and understand how the resolutions work. If, for say, there was a resolution already in place and a Grange would like to amend it or alter it in any way, is that possible, or make suggestions for an actual standing resolution to be moved in a different direction? Is there a process for that? Can that happen? I guess is really my question. Thank you.
Great
I can
question.
take that one.
Good question.
It can happen. If there's a policy, a standing policy, I believe is what you're meaning. Yes, the Grange can pass a resolution to change that policy. It's a process, but it absolutely can happen. Anybody else want to speak on that?
So the way that the resolution would have to start would be, whereas National Grange policy currently says this, and quote the policy, and then follow that up with your other whereases of saying this has changed or that has changed since this policy was put in place, and then give your resolution to say how the policy should be rewritten. Nancy, I'm part of the team that's actually going to come out and do your installation of officers and everything out at Grassroots. So I'll make sure that I have a copy of my journal of proceedings with me so that I can give you our whole policy book whenever I come out.
Excellent. We're looking forward to meeting you all. Thank you.
That'll be great.
Thanks, Phil. That was going to be a
That is the
suggestion since
coolest
you're
Grange
from.
name.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, that is the coolest Grange name when I saw that the other day. Congratulations, Grassroots. That's awesome.
That is good.
Thank
Pete,
you.
I was gonna say, Pete, that I've encouraged our people to consider going through the National Grange policies to see if there is anything that they feel like they would like to change or that's missing, and use those two ideas as the starting points for resolutions.
Absolutely, Mark.
And I will say, as the old man on the delegate floor, I've seen a number of things change over the years from standing policy to new policy.
Yeah.
You've probably seen it change more than once.
Oh yeah, sometimes it's gone back to what it was before.
Attitudes do change. Yeah.
They do, but great questions. I mean, that's great questions. You start if there's something you don't like or you think's wrong, write the resolution and be prepared to defend it. Don't just write the resolution, then think you're going to let it go, because you've got to defend it. And then, whole policy book.
It's interesting at national, a lot of that defense has to happen in the committees though. So, where we do more and more by Zoom, you really need to pay attention, follow your resolution assignment, and try to either be there or at least provide supplemental information, because the way we've condensed the floor session, there's not as much debate on resolutions on the floor as there used to be, and there's certainly not as much as there can be in Oregon. I see Betsy laughing.
So question to the state presidents, or is there any state secretaries on? Let us say, theoretically, that a resolution came from your state and made it to either National Grange policy or National Grange policy statement. And theoretically, if the National Grange president and legislative director wanted to send a letter to that Grange saying, hey, Vincenttown Grange, we want to congratulate you on taking this stance or taking the time to write a resolution because you saw something you thought needed to be passed at the national level, and we personally want to thank you for doing that. Do your state Granges have that information and can hold it long enough so we could get a hold of you and say, hey, can you tell us where this came from? Yeah. Theoretically.
We know what Grange it came from. We don't necessarily know who wrote it.
That's fine. We realize that, Susan. Just if we know what Grange it came from, we can send the Grange a letter.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, folks, is we want to empower Granges, because how many people don't even realize their resolution passed or had any action at all?
In Connecticut, we have pretty good trace of the trail, so we could easily identify where a resolution originated and what Grange, and find out pretty easily who was the pen that wrote it.
Again, this is all theoretical.
Mark and Susan, wasn't that a resolution out in Oregon this year of giving a report of where what happens
Oh.
to the resolutions.
It was.
Yeah, they wanted it printed in the bulletin, just
Yeah.
the facts.
Just the
Yeah.
facts.
Just the facts.
Yeah, but the outcome of resolutions to national, we're looking for a specific report.
Yeah, they didn't want to have to read the whole article.
And it's the kind of thing that has been appearing in the legislative director's column after national each year. But yeah, apparently we just need a graph. With,
Yeah.
so
I know some state presidents put it in their Gleaner article the next month, so everybody can know, the people that read that. But okay, we were just that was just something I wanted to ask. Can we trace these enough to get a letter thanking them for?
Yeah, it's something we print them for the delegate packet, but then if they're adopted, the whole resolution is printed in our proceedings. But I believe at that point it drops off who submitted it, because at that point it's the product of the Oregon State Grange. So as long as somebody's keeping those original resolutions, which we don't throw anything away, so should be.
No. Just use just flip it over, use the other side to print on, Don't want to waste paper.
That's not confusing at all.
Cool. Anything else anybody like to say? If not, I'll let Sam discuss her upcoming junior and youth programs.
Oh no, not Sam.
Oh no, not me. Well, while we're talking on the resolution side, I'm going to do a little bit of a program boost for a second. One of the new programs in the Junior Grange this year, I know we're not all juniors on here, but maybe we're juniors at heart. But this is definitely kind of a beginner step of the resolution process that we have set up for the juniors to start learning about the advocacy process in the Grange. So we have a whole advocacy section in our junior handbook this year that really breaks down identifying the community you want to help. Is that school, is that local, is that state or national related, identifying your issue, your reason, your plan, and moving forward with how to come up with a resolution. So for those that are looking for kind of the basic outline of how you start that, you can look in the junior program book, because it's there, and it's kind of, it's a basic outline, but it's at least a starting point to kind of understand what you need to build your resolution up. But I was laughing. I was like, yeah, these are kind of points that we are talking about. And then, of course, our John Trimble legislative experience, which we touched on at the very beginning a little bit, is for the youth department. And so anybody that's interested in, any of the youth that are interested in the legislative process of the Grange, how these resolutions work and how they come to life, and all of the behind the scenes work, that's definitely a great opportunity for anyone 14 to 35 to take advantage of. Applications are due September 1st, so take advantage of that quickly if it's something you or someone you know are interested in, for sure. But this Sunday on the 20th, we are going to have a combined junior jibber jabber and youth yammerings, which is our bi-monthly youth and junior meetings for anyone interested in the programming. This Sunday, we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about all the programs that you can, and contests that you can apply for that are due September 1st. So if they've got, anybody has application questions or is in the process of wanting to apply for certain things but unsure, this will be a great time for the youth or juniors or their directors or anyone interested to jump on and ask those questions. And then we're going to follow it up with a meeting with the Northeast Youth Directors. So if you are a Northeast Youth Director or in contact with one, make sure you pass that along. But yeah, that's about it for me.
Thanks, Sam. I think something else we need to mention is the past, and help me with this, Sam, 3 or 4 years we've had the youth team, your youth team, sit in on the new delegate training and also in resolution committees and taking part in that. I think that's been a wonderful program.
Yeah, each year for the last few years, we've had our youth ambassador team or youth leadership team each kind of select a focus that they are interested in, whether that's the education committee, the ag committee, whatever it is, and they have had the opportunity to sit in on those committee meetings and be a vital part of the discussions of the resolutions and things like that. So it's definitely something our ambassadors have really enjoyed, and I hope that continues, because it's really fun. I think our delegates have kind of enjoyed having that younger voice come in and use their technology really quickly to Google something or find, background history on some things. So I think it's a great opportunity for our youth to have.
I agree. I think their perspective is so different than ours. Not in a bad way, but they look at the world because they're younger. They look at the world differently. And
One of the fun
I'll tell you
things
what,
I was gonna say too, Pete, one of the fun things that we're doing this year with the youth that are in attendance, and specifically like our youth officer team that's coming in, is some of the resolutions that are coming from the states. They're going to be given one of those resolutions to discuss and to talk about, and they're going to bring it to the floor on Friday morning for our delegates to vote on, and they're going to discuss it with them too. So that's going to give them another unique opportunity to kind of see the inner workings of how that happens on the state and national level.
that's such a fun idea. I like that. Like that. See, folks, how resolutions can empower all age groups in the Grange if you give them an opportunity. Turn them loose.
Yeah.
Especially if you want the state dog in Oregon to be a Springer Spaniel or whatever it is.
Gordon Setter.
Yeah, Gordon Setter.
Oh, Gordon, well, Springer Spaniel, Gordon Setter, Johnny Walker, whatever.
Yeah, really.
Coonhound.
Curly-haired black and tan dog.
There we go. Group, anything else anybody wants to bring up?
Yep, I had my secretary email everybody in their state that had an email about this meeting tonight. And I do that quite often. I don't make a lot of Zoom meetings, but the Zoom meetings, I try to get on the membership meetings. And sometimes I get so wrapped up with daily activities here at the farm that I just miss. But I did want to let you know that I did email anybody that had an email address in their membership got an email today about this meeting. And we sent it out early, probably before 9 o'clock this morning. So I was really hoping to see another face from Delaware on this Zoom meeting tonight, but it didn't happen. But I did get it out there. I want to let you know that.
I appreciate that, Jimmy. I appreciate that a lot. I'm sure Betsy does, and everybody on here appreciates that.
It's hard to get people involved, and I don't know what to do about it. But
this was kind of short notice, so I appreciate everybody that's on tonight. Yes,
yeah.
James.
So, hey, I found out about this was the Facebook posting, and I'm kind of in transition right now because I was up in Vermont for the last 8 to 10 years of my life. Was a state youth director there for a year, and for at least 2 years anyway. But now I'm back down in Connecticut, so I'm getting to see Brother Bob and things again, and it's good to see him as he is, and just to affiliate myself more with national members and everything like that, and get to hear different perspectives on what resolution writing is and how resolutions really should be written. I mean, yeah, I think more people could have taken the opportunity in this, but I think what we as Rangers need to do is, as soon as we participate in an event like this, we need to make sure that we forward it on to them, our own members, legislative, or the subordinate ranges, and then the Pomonas and the state, so that we can get everybody to hear what needs to be heard. And being that I'm 39 years old, it's a little difficult for me being a youth member and all the members are older prospectively to me, and it's like we don't have a generation, or there's a generation gap, and it's kind of like what do the youth really want to, what do they need to hear?
Good question.
Could you state that again? You kind of broke up a little bit.
my feelings are that the Granges, from subordinate to Pomona Estate, all need to hear this. And I'm 39 years old, and there was a bit of a generation gap, and some people just weren't necessarily willing to help someone like me. So it's hard to say that.
Now, do you mean someone your age? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I can't answer that question. All I can say is now that knowing these people on here, they're right there for you, buddy. You know, and I'm sure, and I'll make this publicly stated, the state of Connecticut right now is doing some amazing things. And Bob is doing an amazing job in that state. And I'm sure if you reach out to him, he'll help you transition back into the Connecticut state, the Granges, and help you where you need help to get back involved.
Are you
Bob's a
back
good
in
man,
Winchester,
good person.
Grange? Jim, are
Brother
you back
Bob,
in Winchester?
Brother Bob, I'm actually at Wigville. My
At
parents
Wigville.
and I are at Wigville.
Oh, good. Okay, with Debbie. Yeah, great. That's one of the Granges I got to get up to visit.
Yeah, and actually, our Grange, we just had a meeting last Tuesday, and Brother Peter was installing or giving 8 new members to our Grange.
Yeah, I just spoke with Peter. Good, good. Keep it up.
So,
and
Peter's
James,
doing a
I'll
great
say
job.
this, that the Granges that I'm seeing that are growing now and doing and involved and things in the community, they have a core of younger members your age that, I'll be honest with you, they bucked the system. And you know what? They won. Because they realized what needed to change, and they held their ground, and they worked with everybody. But it was the enthusiasm of a younger group that said, you know, guys, why don't we try this instead? Let's do this. And they're making a difference. I can name the Granges. I can name the Grangers that have are doing amazing things because of a core group of people your age. So we're watching you now, buddy. We're expecting great things out of Wigville Grange. I got faith in you.
I'm hoping
because you wouldn't be on here tonight if you
out.
didn't want to make
Yeah.
change. So you need something. Everybody on this screen, if you get a hold of them somehow, they'll help you. I know Brother Bob will help you.
Well, the thing that is going on, I had a Facebook with a bunch of people that are in this meeting right now, and that profile got hacked. And I'm like, so
it's all right. Take your time.
Get back. Like, I have a new profile right now, and if people want to send their friend requests on, they can do that, and we'll get back affiliated.
We'll make it all work. We'll make it all work. Anybody else have anything to like to discuss, bring up, talk about?
I just wanted to address our worthy Vice President, Chris. You were going to send me the secret work for the 6th degree, if you would, please, with the new wording for the salute.
Right. Yeah, there's several of us on here that can do that, but I did promise you that, and I will send that
I'm holding you to it.
right now. Okay, yes, you are.
When you get a moment. I mean, I'm just starting in on that part of my memory work.
Okay.
Thank you.
I can. I live alone now, so I can get all sorts of stuff done.
Sister Ann, our National Program Director, anything you'd like to say? You're kind of quiet there in Minnesota. Other than Sunbeam Grange doing a lot in their
It finally cooled off here in Minnesota. I'm kind of happy about that. Way too hot for me there for a long time. I also have a lectures forum coming up on the 22nd, I believe it is. Yeah. Talk about the past contests, present contests, future contests, and see if I can also get any direction from our state lecturers for the kind of programming direction they would like to go in. So that'll be coming up. Maybe a resolution writing workshop would be good. So
There you go.
a great conversation tonight. Thank you. Been enjoying it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, if not, I've covered all my notes. I appreciate everybody being on. I really do. Hopefully it's.
Pete, I have one last thing to say.
I find that hard to believe, Loretta, but let's go for it.
Okay, we have 2 new items in the National Grange store.
What?
And one item, every male and female need this item. We have National Grange socks. They are good looking socks. Burton has 2 pair and he said they wear beautiful. I've worn mine once. They are great. And those socks cost $16 plus shipping. And just arrived today. And Sam don't know this yet, but we now have Junior Grange buttons. So every little Junior Granger can have a button that they can wear, so everybody know they're a Junior Grange member, and they'll be selling for $5 each plus shipping.
Nice.
I like how it's bigger, Loretta, so we can read it.
Yes, I like it
pen.
bigger too. I like it too. So
Yeah, because some of those older pens are kind of small printed, and you get real close to somebody to read it, they kind of get offended at you for getting too close to them. But
yeah.
Well, folks, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
Hey, Pete.
And everybody have a great night and a great day.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
everybody.